Hey, welcome back to our shop just outside Kennesaw here in North Georgia. My name's Larry. For the next few days we're going to be working on this beautiful quarter-sawn oak table. It was manufactured by Bookstedge Furniture out of Evansville, Indiana. It was probably made around first part of the 1900s, 1910 thereabouts. It appears to be solid quarter-sawn oak. The legs appear to be solid quarter-sawn oak. We'll see what this center column is made out of. The owner's main concern was the legs have come loose over the years, and we're going to have to take these off to see what the problem is and how we're going to rejoin them. And they're also loose, you know, at all the places that they're attached to themselves. They're in sections, obviously. These carved legs are in good shape. They're screwed in. And then there's apparently some kind of a problem with the slide mechanism, but we'll get that figured out once we get all the legs off. So let me bring in here and show you what we're up against. And I've got the table marked so that when we disassemble it, I can put it back together. But one of the things to note when you look at a project like this, you can see this is a replacement screw. This is a replacement screw and a glue block. Same thing here. This is one of the original screws I just pulled out. That goes in this hole here. So someone has been in here before me. The owner tells me that when he bought this table, it didn't work. The slide mechanism, the legs didn't work. He disassembled it and was able to figure out how to put it back together, so at least it worked. So I would assume the table may have been knocked down for storage and then reassembled quickly for sale, and we are going to have to deal with whatever we find. So let's get some tools together and let's start pulling off the leg assemblies and see what we can do to help this gentleman out. And I don't often use power tools to take screws out, but there are so many of these and they're relatively large screws. To save my wrists, I'm going to go with a power tool. Here's the first leg assembly removed from the table. Let's take a look and see at the mounting system. And you can see right away why these legs are loose. This is the dowel. It's basically a round tenon. I would imagine the columns were turned on a lathe. That's what this little hole is for. And then it was turned to produce a round tenon. You know, this hole is effectively the mortise, and you can see how badly it's wallowed out. Now there are modern nails that have been driven through into the column to try to stabilize it, and of course we would assume that's an incorrect repair, but I look at these and these appear to be original nails. And you can look up here and you see the same thing. We have original nails and newer nails, and I'm seeing that really at every single one of these joints. It looks like it had 4 original nails and some were added. Let's see if we can knock this frame off of these legs. We have to do so in a manner that doesn't wallow out or crush these tenons. And I've got a big dead blow mallet here. It's rubber. Let's give it some taps. And you can see the legs are already starting to come apart at the other joints where the glue has failed. So we're in for a real adventure here, I think. That's all the space we've got so far. And we're starting to get a little space here where we want, but what we're also doing is loosening up these curved portions. The last thing I want is for one of these to fall down and break. So I'm going to see if I can't get these off first, put them aside where they're safe so we don't have any problems. So give me a second to get these marked so I remember where they go, and then we'll come back and work on these columns. And with a little bit of tapping, this joint here has let go, just like it has on the other side. And it's hide glue. It's 100-year-old hide glue. It's starting to fail. We're going to wind up with a lot of this during this project. And here's what we've got so far. Here's the remaining piece. We've got that much space. There's a single dowel in there, you can see, but it's hanging out. I'm going to heat this up with a heat gun, see if we can get it loose. Let's try some wedges. Got to get some wood ones. Always keep in mind when you're trying to remove a joint, when it's not moving and it seems unusually strong, take the time to check for mechanical fasteners. I'm not seeing any here, but I'm going to double check. I'll bring you back as we start to make some progress here. Well, we've made a little bit of progress, but it sure isn't going to let go yet. I'm going to add some more heat to this. See what it can do. I'm able to get the nozzle of the heat gun right up to the dowel. So now I'm not quite so worried about bubbling the finish. My goodness. Trying to avoid the temptation of prying this up because I don't want to do any damage to this column. This is solid oak. This is an exceptionally high quality table. This thing must have cost a fortune back in the day. I'm about running out of tricks here. I'll turn you off, I'll keep working on it. We have raised that a full inch and it's still not giving up the ghost. That's a solid oak dowel in there as well. I'm thinking about the length of the dowel that was in the chair. I think we're going to be dealing with the same thing here. Guess we just have to keep trying. A full inch and a half and it's still hanging on. Finally. After all that beating, this dowel is still tight down here. It came loose up here. Remarkable. Boy, I'm glad that's off. And now back to our regularly scheduled disassembly. See if we can get those columns off of there. We've got some space on the top one. We've got a little more space on the bottom one. We got a little wiggling on the nails. And I think what I'm going to do is pound these columns back down, see if I can grab these nails and pull them out so we don't beat this thing into submission. Okay, you can see that we've got a little bit of give on the nails. I'm going to try to pull these out from underneath. We may wind up marring the underside of this structure, but it's a judgment call on my part that we're going to do more damage whaling this thing to get these loose, and we're going to run the risk of damaging this. This is a mortise and tenon joint that holds this together, and I sure don't want to crack it. So let's work on pulling these nails out. We'll get a better idea of what we're facing. And the nail broke right off. By changing the angle that I'm pulling it, I'm now pulling it in the angle that it went in with, and it's coming out much easier. Yeah, this was no brat. Look at the length of this thing. Holy my goodness gracious, look at... Okay, this is what I'm going to be doing here. I'm going to try to get all these nails out, and then we'll get this column off. I'll bring you back. And I've got all the nails out but the one that was broken off before I got here, and rather than try to dig this out, I think I'm going to try to drive this out now. I knew if I saved this piece of rod it would come in handy someday. Boy, if there is any doubt about the quality of this table, take a look at that turning. That's solid quarter-sawn oak. Holy Christmas, what a beautiful piece of furniture. Okay, that one's out. Okay, we've got this entire thing disassembled, and you can see this is a pretty round hole. Unfortunately, this one is not. That one is not. This one's okay. I'm turning it over. There's a repaired split on this one that's been glued together, and you can see all the damage that was caused by the nails that have been driven in over the years. The legs, they're in great shape, except every single joint is compromised on them. Some of the joints came apart as we were disassembling them. They all are going to need to be re-glued and joined. You can see this. You can see this dowel here has had wood added to it, and God knows when somebody even wrapped string around it trying to tighten it up. This has been an ongoing problem with this table, certainly for years. I took the other leg assembly off to see what we were dealing with there. I haven't disassembled it yet. And we have the same issue. We have a tight mortise and tenon joint there, a tight mortise and tenon joint there, but then look there, it looks like it's been drilled twice, and the same there. I removed the column's in good shape. It's mounted with screws. I'm going to take back what I said about those nails. I think they've been added over the years, maybe in 2 separate attempts to tighten this up. I'm just not sure. Right now, I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do to secure these legs. Now, the other problem the gentleman had with this table was a split in one of the runners of the extension assembly, and it's this one here, and yeah, it's split almost the full length of it. Now I could try to hold that open and fill it with glue and clamp it up, but I really think it needs to be disassembled to be done correctly. And to disassemble it is not this. Take it off is not that big a deal. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to come apart, but it's just some screws. All the glue blocks that hold it in are loose, so it should just come right out. I think what I'm going to do is close this table up, pull this assembly off, and see about getting this glued up tonight, and then call it a day. And we'll get back out here tomorrow with a fresh look at everything. Okay, this would be the outside most rail, and we're able to slide that off. It's got 2 stops here to control the backs going backwards. This is the one we've got to get out, and it stops just like that one would if it was installed, and it stops also in the rear. The stop on this side is internal. The stop on this side is this little dowel pin here that's been glued in. So we got to get that out, and then we should be able to slide this off. With it off, we can do a proper repair on it. I don't want to try to repair it while it's on. So let me get some stuff, and we'll get to work on pulling that dowel out. And my plan is to heat it up and try to get it out. If it breaks, it breaks. We'll drill it out. Let's get it nice and toasty and see if we can get that out of there. Anytime you use metal pliers on these dowels, be real careful. They have a tendency just to shatter on you. Well, something went right today. All right. Okay, it's off and you can see the stop that's in here. And you can see the shiny stuff on the outside of the brake. That looks like glue, or someone tried to get some glue in there, but there's absolutely no glue inside that brake. So what I'm going to do is clean that out the best I can. We'll fill it up with PVA glue. We'll clamp that up overnight, and that'll take care of repairing this. And I think the slide mechanism is going to work just fine. We had discussed the need if it was necessary to replace it. I think it's going to be fine. So we're going to fill that. We're going to glue that, crack back together, and reinstall this slide mechanism, and I think that problem will be solved. Okay, my battery light's flashing. I hope this lasts. We've got some glue in this hypodermic syringe. We'll get this down in here best we can, all the way into the fine part of the crack. And then we'll go to the brush. Start at this end. And just paint this. I've got a little magnet on the underside of this cup to hold it down. And every time I stick the knife in there, it grabs the knife. I feel like I'm getting bit by a shark. I'm not worried about being neat here. I want this filled with glue. And whatever the joint doesn't need, it'll squeeze out and we clamp it up and we'll wipe it off. Okay, I'm happy we've got good glue squeeze out all the way along. And hopefully you're still with me, but you can see the glue squeeze out we've got in here. Got the clamps on. Okay, I'm going to get this all cleaned up. Going to let this set aside. We had a long day today, but we're still standing. I'll finish this up today. We'll get back to the shop tomorrow. Good night, everybody. Good morning. Let's take off these clamps and see how we did. Seems like we say that a lot around here, don't we? It's all together. I'll take it. Just take a piece of sandpaper wrapped in a dowel and run it in here and make sure we get this nice and flat. Knock off any glue that might be in there. Just so it operates smoothly. And when that's done, we'll put a little candle wax on it. And we've got our pin. Just put a little drop of hide glue on it and tap it home. Now, we surely appreciated the fact we could get it out, so let's put it back in with some hide glue and the next guy can get it out too. Okay. That takes care of it. I'm going to wax these runners before we put it back in. And as always, before we re-glue anything, we scrape the surfaces clean. So I'll get these glue blocks scraped clean and also the corresponding places in the table before we put this back in. I'm working on installing the leaf assemblies, and I wanted to draw your attention to these drips. And they seem to emanate from seams. And it's not unusual for these tables to come apart at the seams, so this has definitely been re-glued. And the issue is that some of these big glue drops are right here where the extension assembly would park, would garage, and it would certainly interfere with a smooth operation. So I'm going to take a razor blade and scrape up all these old glue drops. And wax this area so that the extension assemblies operate more smoothly. And the other issue that I noted was that these extension assemblies have been removed and remounted at least 3 times. There's 3 different sets of holes, all in different locations. So the question then becomes, where should they be mounted? And you note here this structure that supports the legs. There's no reason that these aren't mounted so that these glue blocks attach to here and straighten things up. And in fact, when I line up those holes, one set of holes does belong right up against here. So I believe that's the original mounting location. Over the years, things have shrunk. We have a little gap here. So probably what I'll do is when I reinstall these and glue these glue blocks down, I'll glue in some shims so we're at least attaching the side of this glue block to the side of this leg mount assembly. You can see how many times those leg mounts have been off. It looks like a woodpecker's been on there. We'll have to deal with that when the time comes. But I think we've got the assembly situation licked. It works correctly, and I'm just going to go ahead now and finish waxing the assemblies and then mount them on here. And by repositioning the position, we've got the glue blocks all mounted against support. We got it. With the tabletop done and we can set it aside, get it off the big workbench, start to focus our attention on putting these leg assemblies back together in anticipation of later mounting them back into the mounting frames, I guess you'd call it, and we'll deal with that in another moment. What I've done is clamp this big curved leg assembly into the vise. I've got it dry clamped right now with a clamp that's fortunately able to grab the underside of the vise, so I can put some pressure on here. So what I'll do is just take a razor blade, scrape this off just like we have in the past, re-glue it, clamp it down, and let it set. And then we've got several of these to do, several pieces to do. It's going to be a lot of start and stop. So let me get to it. Okay, let's put this piece back on. Okay, I'm pretty happy with the way that's lined up. Now we wait. And here's our next challenge. We're loose here. We're split wide open here. So we've got to get this out by, again, there's nails in there. So we're going to tap this out, get the nails out of this, clean this out, glue this, clamp it real well, and when this then sets up, then we can reattach this. So the next step for me is to tap these nails out if I can. And the other thing that we learned is that part of our dowel broke off in here. As you recall, when we pulled this corbel off, or whatever we want to call it, we found this piece of broken dowel inside here. So we said to ourselves, the dowel broke, big deal. Well, when I pulled this out, I said to myself, gee, that really doesn't look like those two ever belonged together. And then we turn it over, we can see that this is a replacement dowel, and it's just wedged into what looks to be a completely walled out hole. And this dowel is too short, so when you put this cap on, the dowel doesn't even protrude into that. So this entire joint, which supports a gigantic table capable of holding 8 leaves, was on with what little glue was in there, 100-year-old glue. So we've got to fix that, or this thing is going to be blown apart once again. So first thing we're going to do is glue this together and get this cooking, and then we're going to have to do something here to get this dowel out and extend it so it continues into the into this. Oh, one other thing, that little dent, that's where somebody stuck a screwdriver in there to pry this off instead of doing it the way we did. And that's the kind of damage you could cause when you start to pry with metal on wood. And the first step in repairing this broken dowel is to cut it out flush. There you go. Now I'm going to put a mark in the center of it and start drilling it out. That's where we are so far. I'll just take a chisel, pick this out the best I can. And I'm sorry I can't get you in here to look down on this, but there's just not any room. Okay, this is our hole. It's supposed to be 5/8. It's wallowed out and it's broken. So my 5/8 dowel get inserted like that, but you can see it's got an awful lot of slop in there. I've inserted the dowel into this piece here So that's going to hold it perfectly straight because it's tight on this. And then what I'll do is I'll put wood shims and epoxy in here. We'll put this in, drop this other piece down over it, and this piece will hold it right where it needs to be while the epoxy sets up. Well, that's my plan anyways. Let's see if it works. Okay, you can see I slipped some shims in that hole. What I'm going to do is put this in here, work some shims around it, and fill that hole with liquid epoxy. Then drop this trim piece down, line it up, and clamp it, and everything should be nice and straight. I can't possibly bring you in close to see what I'm doing, so I'll set the camera up, and now that you know what I'm doing, you should be able to figure it out from afar. And since we're going to have epoxy spill out here because of the damage to the hole, I'm just going to go ahead and Evel Knievel. I'm just going to go ahead and put this trim piece down with epoxy, so when it dries up, everything is done. Looks pretty good to me. Looks very good. And that's the system. It's clamped up. Yeah, I left that a little long, but we'll cut it to length. Alright, here's where we are so far. It's about 2 in the afternoon, but we're going to have to knock off because all this stuff needs to set up. I don't like rushing dry times, particularly with something structurally as important as leg assemblies. We don't want these coming apart. Anyways, this is one leg assembly. It's been taken apart and all the loose pieces have been glued. We have this piece over here that we worked on together. That was the one with the missing dowel. The tabletop, we believe we're through with that. We've got the extension assemblies taken care of. Then this leg assembly here is drying. And once that's dried, then we can attach this column to it. And that'll take care of the leg assemblies for one side of the table only. The other leg assembly is here, and I'm not going to disassemble this until the other one's all put together, both for room and also reference reasons. And then we're going to have to tackle this issue here, and I think I have a solution that I'll share with you when the time comes. So just about every available inch of the shop is used up, and almost every clamp as well. Well, that's a lie. We have clamps. But we've got a lot of clamps busy right now. So that's going to be it for today. Thanks for sticking with me. We'll see you tomorrow. Y'all have a good night. Bye.